Okay, so what do you get when you combine a Steam Deck with an Xbox Series S? Well, it is the ROG Xbox Ally. Over my week with this device, that is really the conclusion that I have reached here. It is not quite a Steam Deck, it is not quite an Xbox console, and it is somewhere in the middle, which actually works out in its favor. This handheld was not designed to play the latest and greatest at 1080p and high fidelity, and instead it is targeting 720p resolution with 30 FPS to 60 FPS as the range, depending on the game. Once again, very similar to the Steam Deck. With Xbox's backing and Asus's hardware, does it hit the mark? Hey everyone, Joey here, and today we are going to be doing a review on the ROG Xbox Ally. This little white one right here. Now it is important to note, there are two handhelds releasing tomorrow. There is the ROG Xbox Ally, and that's the one I have here today. It retails for $599 US or 799 Canadian dollars. And then there is the more expensive, but also more powerful, ROG Xbox Ally X. That one retails for $999 US or 1,299 Canadian dollars. And I will be reviewing that model separately whenever it arrives, and we'll do some detailed comparisons between the two in a future video. But I will say, I was hands-on with that ROG Xbox Ally X for a bit at an event, and it is noticeably more powerful than the Xbox Ally that we are reviewing today. But also it is noticeably more expensive too, so it's a bit of both. The best way to look at this though, is we have the white Xbox Series S handheld here today versus the black Xbox Series X handheld that we don't have here today. This metaphor works on so many different levels, you'll understand by the end of the review. Let's do a very quick once-over of the specs of the ROG Xbox Ally. We have the Ryzen Z2A processor powering this device. And of course, we'll be talking about power quite a bit today, but for those of you that are familiar with a Steam Deck, well, it's a Steam Deck. There is 16 gigabytes of RAM and a 512 gigabyte SSD. Both are slightly limiting the hard drive more than the RAM, but thankfully it is not very difficult to replace the hard drive if you wanted to. We have a 7-inch 1080p IPS 16:9 display with variable refresh rate. This is the same display that they have been using on the previous Asus ROG Ally models that have released in the last few years. And while I definitely would prefer an OLED display, this has been pretty solid over time at this size. I think Asus got a lot of flack for reusing this display, but there is nothing wrong with it at all. Yeah, it's IPS, it's not OLED, but it is still a good IPS screen. And it has all of the specs that you want with VRR, 120 Hz, all of that. And personally, I'm glad they're sticking with a 7-inch screen because anything bigger just feels like you're holding a monitor. We have two USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type-C ports, so you can charge and use the other for a USB hub if you wanted to, or plug anything else in. And these ports also have video out through DisplayPort 1.4. There is a micro SD card slot, so you can expand your storage if you'd like, and we also have an audio jack. The entire device is large, bigger than the previous Asus ROG Ally X, and despite the fact that it weighs just about the same as that device, this actually feels a lot lighter, and it feels like you're holding nothing at all. This is very hard to explain over video, but it is big, it is as heavy as an Asus ROG Ally X, but because the weight is centered in the device, and it's kind of light and hollow on the grips on the side, it really does feel like you're holding nothing. I've reviewed so many handhelds in my life, I would never have expected when I first lifted this up for this to feel this light. And it is hard to come across in video, you have to lift one of these to understand it. It is super light. I've been playing this for hours, I've held it for hours. You don't get fatigue or anything like that. They are doing some magic here that distributes the weight perfectly, that it feels so much lighter than it is. Although it isn't super heavy at 658 grams or whatever it is, but it is lighter than you would expect for a PC handheld. Then we have a nice 60 watt hour battery here, which is larger than the 40 watt hour and 50 watt hour batteries that we usually see in these devices, and we'll talk about battery later. Now, with all of the specs out of the way, I'm coming at this review from a perspective of an Xbox console player, even PlayStation console player, any console player that is not familiar with PC handhelds. So my review today is tailored towards that group of people. Anybody that doesn't know what these things are, has never used the Steam Deck, has no idea what that is, and what is your experience with this device? Is it easy to use? Is it like an Xbox? What can and can't you play? All of that. I want to tailor this review to those types of people because that is what this is marketed towards. And so everybody that's familiar with PC handhelds, you're going to get a bit of a different review today. Now, I think most people have heard of the Steam Deck by now, even a lot of console users. The Steam Deck has obviously been the top handheld device in this market for a few years now, both by sales and by community. But the Steam Deck still has very important negatives to the wide general gaming public. It is running Linux, which does not do well with anti-cheat. That means no Call of Duty, no Destiny, no Battlefield, no Grand Theft Auto Online, and so on. There is a long list of games that you cannot play on a Steam Deck. And it is also not sold in retail stores around the world. So it's not very easy to pick up and play if you wanted to just drive somewhere and grab one. The Xbox Ally, to continue the Steam Deck comparison here, is now that. You'll mostly be playing at 720p resolution here, not so dissimilar to the 800p on the Steam Deck. And it is also at a battery length that is measured in hours, not in minutes, also like the Steam Deck. However, now because of Windows, you have access to all of the top games in the world that do have anti-cheat. So there really is no downside here. Microsoft also has gone above and beyond on this one with creating an Xbox UI or a new entirely UI for PC handhelds to help the transition from console users to PC handhelds, where previously it was a lot more difficult to make that swap. So the basic idea is just imagine you were taking an Xbox Series S on the go. I think anybody familiar enough with that UI from Xbox is going to be right at home here because you are separated from the Windows desktop. You're in your own little world with the Xbox UI here. Now, it is important to note that the Xbox Series S is still more powerful than the ROG Xbox Ally that I have here today. I don't want to oversell the power of the device. Doing a very quick unboxing here, and the very first thing that you need to pay attention to is the manual. You need to connect the handheld to power to be able to turn it on for the very first time. I have seen a lot of people get confused by this and think their device is defective over the years because it was the same with the other ROG Allies. So just remember, look at the pretty pictures, connect to power, and turn it on. There is a nice, cool little cardboard stand at the top of the box if you want to easily dock it somewhere. We have the device, of course, and under the device is a box with the manual, and on the other side is a box with the included 65-watt charger. Now, Asus also provided me with their 2-in-1 premium case. It does have some weather protection from spills and water. The interior is soft fleece and it feels nice. There is also a Velcro style holder to keep your device in place, and it also has SD card storage slots if you need them. It also works as a stand of sorts if you want to prop your Ally up against it. On the back is a detachable pouch thing for the charger, so it's sort of an all-in-one case. That being said, the price for this is $70 US, but in Canadian dollars, it is a whopping $100 Canadian. Yeah, I'm sorry, Asus. It is a nice case, but it is not $100 Canadian nice. Let's do a tour of the device and controls so you can get an idea of what to expect. I mentioned before that this feels extremely light for the weight, and that all combines into the ergonomics and control layout to make one of the most comfortable devices that I have ever used. They seriously nailed it. I'm going to be honest, the ROG Xbox Ally is ugly as hell. This is by far one of the ugliest handhelds that I have ever seen. I said it when I first saw the picture, when it got first announced, and I still think it now. It is a very ugly device. But it works. It really does feel like you're holding a normal controller with a screen in the center. And they didn't try and force smaller size with worse controls. They just made it this big and said, here you go. The grips especially really help. They are pronounced like a controller would be. They have some nice grip, and it also feels natural to hold. It is comfort heaven. We have full-sized analog sticks here. These are not Hall effect sticks, once again from Asus, but they are still great sticks. And they feel exactly like an Xbox controller's sticks. So anybody that's been using an Xbox controller, you'll be right at home with these sticks. It is basically the exact same. Then we have a circle-style D-pad here. The ROG Ally series has always had one of the best D-pads on the market for PC handhelds, and they continue it here with the Xbox Ally. This won't matter too much for those of you that are just playing modern games, but if you plan on playing any emulation, you're going to love the D-pad. Then we have the Xbox Guide button and the Asus Command Center button at the top, Select and Window button on the bottom. For those of you familiar with previous Allies, these are swapped here compared to previous models, and I still haven't gotten used to the new layout. I continually press the Armory Crate button instead of Select and vice versa all the time. Still haven't gotten used to it. Old habits die hard. Now on the right, it is the same thing. They swapped them for Menu and Start. And then we have some of my favorite buttons on PC handhelds. These are large face buttons, lots of travel, and they are pretty loud. Once again, comparing this to an Xbox controller, they are basically the exact same as you would expect. This all keeps tying into the fact that this is an Xbox controller with a screen in the center. Lastly, there's the right stick here on the right. There is nothing at all sexy on the bottom, so let's talk about the top. We have nice, large shoulder buttons with a nice click, and really there's not much to talk about on the shoulders. Then we have some also very large triggers, analog triggers, of course. For some reason, my left side trigger feels different than the right. Right is pretty smooth to push down and easy to push down. Left feels like there's some weird resistance there for whatever reason. It could just be a quality control thing, but I am not sure. That being said, these are absolutely fantastic for both shooters and racing games. There really isn't anything that they don't excel in, and they really just feel like you're holding a very big controller. Then we have two USB ports here at the top, charging and power LEDs, volume buttons, micro SD card slot, audio jack, and power button. The power button is also a fingerprint reader. I have been using that pretty much always to sign in, and it makes it really easy if you want to protect everything by just tapping your finger to sign in. Let's go ahead and talk software now. Look, we all know that a big problem with the difference between console and PC users is the ease of use. You turn on your Xbox, you open the game, and you play it. Sometimes you might need to choose a different graphics mode or FPS mode, but generally that is it. You don't worry about driver updates, other updates, compatibility, graphic settings, none of that. You just pick up and play the game. And while the Xbox Ally has made significant jumps in that department, from the start of the device, you are thrown right into the Xbox app. It's not too hard to understand how to navigate for anybody that has or had an Xbox. You can access your Game Pass games easily, install and play them, and so on. Actually, it is very easy to navigate and go around. If you hit the big Xbox button on the device, you now have a lot more options. You can head over to settings to turn off the device or restart, connect to Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and more. There's the Xbox Social tab if you want to talk to your friends, Audio tab to adjust your volume, actually super useful to lower the audio of your game if you have some music going in another tab. You can use the capture system to record gameplay. You can also see some performance stats, Xbox achievements, and more. All of this is very easily accessible, and you use the controller for the entire thing. Now at the front, we have the Asus Command Center button, which is also where the Asus integration comes in. You have operating modes, and you can tell the device what power level you want to run at. Do you want less performance, but silent, because the device is playing an indie game? So you can choose that. Maybe you need more performance, so you jump into turbo mode or performance mode. Then there's some other options like turning on the FPS counter and information with the real-time monitor. You can also change the resolution from 720p to 900p to 1080p, and so on. There's also sliders for brightness and volume. Once again, all of this is using the controller, so you don't have to tap anything. It's really easy to use. Now, if you want, you can head over to Asus's software called Armory Crate for even more options. For example, if you jump into performance, you can create your own performance modes and your own fan curves if you wanted to. You can also adjust the GPU RAM if you need to. There is an update center for you to do all of the updates that you need for the device. For the most part, there are some times where you do have to jump into Windows and do Windows Update, but Armory Crate for the most part has everything else. You can also head into Aura Sync, and you can play with the LEDs if you want to change to a different effect. You can head into lighting, and it's the same thing. You can change the LEDs to whatever you want, and you can adjust if they turn on, when they turn on, all of that. One other important feature here is battery care. If you plan to dock this often or play next to a charger often, you can set the device to only charge to 80% to save some of the battery if you want to. Now, for the most part, to avoid confusing you, outside of updates, you don't really need to head into Armory Crate at all. A lot of those things that we just saw can be done from the command center that shows up on the left. There's a lot of tiles here that just easily you can click to do whatever you need to do. You can really customize this to how you want. Now, I mentioned it before, but Microsoft made an entirely new UI here, and that is what we are in. We are in the Xbox app, and it is called full screen mode. That is mostly what you will be in pretty much forever. And you can actually just move back and forth between open games and applications by pushing and holding the Xbox Guide button. And it makes swapping between open windows very, very easy, and it's really simple. This part, honestly, is magic. It's one of my favorite features. The ability to just go back and forth between open windows and applications, and so easily, is my favorite part of the new UI. Now, we are in the Xbox app, but you can, of course, connect other PC launchers like Steam, EA, Ubisoft, and so on, and those games will show up in your list. Essentially, whenever you click a game from one of those launchers, it will open up that launcher and launch the game. So it's pretty easy to understand. This does not import non-Steam games, however, unfortunately. So if you have something like RetroArch for emulators, Dolphin, PS2 or PCSX2, you can't add those currently as Xbox games or whatever. There's no way to add them manually to the Xbox app as of right now. Now, as good as all of this is, the experience does fall apart a little bit when you jump into a game. Microsoft has done a lot of work on the entire UI, and everything that we just saw is awesome, but you are at your own mercy when you load an actual game. For example, none of the graphics settings are adjusted to work with this handheld, so you will have to go in to the graphics and display settings and adjust them to make them run better on the handheld. And so you do have to know a little bit about that, or at least presets, to go in and change the preset to low, medium, high, whatever it is, see if the game runs. If it doesn't, come back in here and change it all over again. This part can be very daunting for new users that are trying to swap over from the easy Xbox console UI and interface and all of that to a handheld on PC that you now have to worry about graphics settings. So I did talk to Asus about this. Now, full disclosure, along with this device being sent for review, I was flown out and put up in a hotel last week for Asus's press event for the launch of the Xbox Ally. As always, my opinion is my own, but I do need to be upfront about these things. But I did ask Asus what work is being done to help console users make the switch. Something like just give me the settings that work with this device option, or preset, or something like that to make it easier for any new users coming to PC handhelds. They were a bit cryptic on this, but they did say it was high on Microsoft's list to get to, and it is something they know is a potential problem. So hopefully in the future it is something we'll see. Now, they are actually doing external work to help on this front as well. It wasn't live during my review or my time for this review, but they are adding badges and information to games to tell you if the game is handheld optimized or compatible, and separately if the performance of the game runs good on the device. So if the game plays great at 60 FPS, it should get a plays great rating. Or if it's 30 FPS or better, it should play very well. This doesn't configure the settings for you, but at least gives you a general expectation. Now, I will say, in this specific scenario with the ROG Xbox Ally, you are mostly going to be setting all of your graphic settings right to low. So it is actually pretty easy to configure for this specific device if you've even been a console player your entire life. For the most part, it is go into graphic setting, set the preset to low, and then go and play. And if it plays well, you're good. If it doesn't, that game is just not going to run well. This is not a very powerful device, and so for pretty much every game that you see in today's video, that is all I did. Now, one other negative for those coming from an Xbox console, there is no quick resume function. It does have alt tabbing, where you can basically swap between open games back and forth, but it isn't setting them into a deep sleep. They are actually using resources, they're just running in the background and you're swapping between them. So it's a very different thing than quick resume. This is also something that I asked them about, and I also got a cryptic answer about this one too. It is something that is on their list to get to, a better sleep mode, quick resume, all of that, but it's not here yet. As of right now, you can throw the handheld into sleep by tapping the power button, and then, after some time, the software will throw it into hibernate mode. In both of these scenarios, returning to a game will sometimes work, and sometimes it won't, depending on the game. There are a lot of games and scenarios where it works just fine, but then there's other games and scenarios where you come back and you do have to restart that game, so it's not a good experience from that front. None of this is anywhere near the level of a console, so just keep that in mind. All of that being said, this is still a Windows PC in the background. Full-blown Windows is on here. If you want to edit a PowerPoint or jump on a Microsoft Teams meeting, you can. I am so sorry for hitting you with work stuff during a video that has nothing to do with work, but I need to drive home that point. There is multiple ways for you to get to the Windows desktop, but if you push and hold the Xbox guide button, you can select Windows Desktop at the bottom, and now you are just using a normal computer as you would. You can, of course, swap back to the Xbox full screen mode through the same way, and you can get back to that tailored experience as a console user. Now, this is actually something important. When you jump into the full screen experience, Windows will ask you if you want the optimized experience, which basically means it's going to turn off all of the Windows bloat, so you can have the best gaming experience by not having to deal with Microsoft Defender or anything like that. One of the biggest cons to Windows gaming for handhelds over the years has been that exact issue, all of the Windows bloat that runs in the background. This solves that by cutting all of it out and saying that, hey, you're in Xbox full screen mode, let's just talk about gaming. Let's just play some games. That's all we're doing here. And so honestly, if your goal is to just play Game Pass games or anything from the Xbox store, you can pretty much stay in full screen mode forever. There is no reason for you to ever go into desktop mode, except for updates occasionally. But there is a very rare time where you ever need to do that. So from a console user experience, this is really good on that front. For the most part, just imagine that your Xbox Series S is how it is right now, and then there was a little button that said, hey, do you want to run Windows in the back? And you click that button once in a while. That's the experience here. Now, Microsoft went even further on all of this. They did improve the entire UI for handheld and controller usage, down to the actual pin and keyboards. Both can be navigated using a controller, and so they really have put a lot of effort into this. All of this is extremely important when looking at the audience of who this is marketed towards. Right now, this is the most user-friendly, out-of-the-box experience handheld that you can buy. This experience will be coming to other PC handhelds in the middle of 2026, but until then, both Xbox Allies have a significant lead in this department. Let's go ahead and talk gaming now, and we're going to look at a bunch of different games and what you can expect. I'm going to be doing an entirely separate video on emulation, so keep an eye out for that. First up, let's get the benchmarks out of the way first. Here is a comparison with the Steam Deck, and the games with no frame rate number is because the Steam Deck can't run those games. Now also, as a reminder, the Steam Deck has an 800p resolution, whereas the Xbox Ally has 720p and 1080p. So there is no real comparison equivalent. However, you can pretty much look at these numbers and guess where it falls in comparison to the Steam Deck if you care about that. The ROG Xbox Ally at 10 watt TDP is plus minus a few frames in a lot of scenarios against the Steam Deck. Some games it performs worse, some games it performs better, but it is close enough. At 15 watt TDP, it is still the same story. I think overall, I would give the Steam Deck the edge in performance here, but the ROG Xbox Ally has the obvious edge in compatibility with games. All of these games were used because they have built-in benchmarks, and it makes comparing one device to another really easily. It removes any subjectivity from these tests. But there are games here that I would not play on either device, like Assassin's Creed Shadows, Black Myth Wukong, and so on, just due to how low the frame rates are. Going from 15 watts to 20 watts doesn't really change much either on the Xbox Ally. We are looking at an under 10% gain, and for the most part, it's like 5% and under. It is like going 34 frames to 37 frames. That makes no difference to anybody at all anywhere. So you can stay in 15 watt mode forever if you wanted to. Now, those were benchmarks, but let's look at some actual gameplay. I jumped over to the most popular tab with Game Pass on the Xbox app, and so I just grabbed everything that I could of what people are playing. What are the top games in the world that people are playing? Because that's what you're going to care about playing. Call of Duty plays very well. All of this is on low at 720p, but there is more than enough performance here to play Call of Duty easily if you wanted to. And yeah, if you want to play Call of Duty on a handheld, this is a good experience. Same scenario here with Forza Horizon 5, another game that is very well optimized for handhelds, and it plays well here too. So both these games are good experiences. Hogwarts Legacy is kind of a dud. There was some massive stuttering, skips, and issues that made this pretty unplayable, so not a good experience. Hollow Knight Silksong, pretty easy to run here. It is an indie game, not something that you would have an issue with. You can run this at 120 FPS all day long. Cyberpunk 2077 is a game that I personally would not play on a Steam Deck or an ROG Xbox Ally, but I do think that you could get away with playing it on here if you wanted to. I am a graphics snob, so I want a little bit more, but this easily fits into playable. Grounded 2 is on the cusp of what I would call playable. There is just enough little hitching and frame rate drops that I don't think it would be a good time right now, but maybe when it releases in full out of early access. Hades 2, another indie, or indie-ish, plays perfectly well here at 120 FPS. Not surprising at all, considering Silksong and Hades 2. Other indies, those will be some of the best ways to play those games on here. Battlefield 6 was in slow motion for some odd reason. The frame rate looked fine, so it is possible there is a weird bug in the game. I don't play it, so I am not sure what was going on, but it was slow motion the entire time. And I don't think you would have a good time unless this gets fixed. So right now, not good. Maybe in the future, good. Well, I don't know. Forza Motorsport is another, like Horizon, that plays just fine. Forza games generally have good performance on handhelds like this, and it shows in these games. No Man's Sky was not a good time, unfortunately. There is just enough lag and frame drops that it made the experience not so great. Formula 1 2024 played great. High frame rates, felt good to play, and it seemed like it would be a very good use case to play Formula 1 on here if you wanted to. Expedition 33 runs okay. It is right on the cusp of what I would think people would play at, but this could go both ways. I think this game is a masterpiece. It should win Game of the Year this year, and I think it deserves to be played at a better frame rate and better settings than this. But I could also see that a lot of people would play this here. Avowed seemed to play just fine, and again, just a reminder that for all of these games, we are at 720p, and the goal is to be at least at 30 FPS stable, if not 60 FPS, and you can cap it to 30 FPS if you wanted to. Grand Theft Auto has no issues running here at all, campaign or online. The big benefit here to Windows gaming is you can play this game on this device, as opposed to something like the Steam Deck, and probably GTA 6 too, whenever that comes out. Gears of War 5 is a similar experience, plays great, good frame rates, and I didn't have any concerns or trouble playing it. Lastly, we have Destiny 2, and I played quite a bit of it because I used it for battery testing, and it was a great way to play this game. Another example of a game that you just cannot play on a Steam Deck, but you can play here thanks to Windows. Overall, performance-wise, I have to go back to what I said earlier. This is a 720p, 30 or 60 FPS device. That is what it is aiming for. That is what it does for the most part, and it is what you should expect. Low settings, 720p, 30 or 60 FPS. There will be a lot of games that just will not run well no matter what. But there is also a big catalog of games that will run just fine on here. The Steam Deck is the best-selling PC handheld with similar performance. So if people can and do buy that, then there is no reason that people won't be happy with this device either. But also, if you are not happy with the performance of the device, if you have the right tier of Game Pass Ultimate, meaning that you are rich enough to afford Game Pass Ultimate, you can now just stream the games if you wanted to and get the highest frame rate and quality through streaming. You have that option available to you if you don't want to use the device as it is. Just stream the games. So you have options. Now, as far as fan noise goes, it doesn't exist. This is quite possibly one of the best fans ever. It blows out air, there's no coil whine, and it's also not loud when it is at the highest power. It is just a low hum of air being blown out. Asus has long been the leader in this market for cooling and fan noise and thermals and all of that. And this continues that. I loved it on my Ally X, and I love it here. There's just no noise. That also ties into the thermals. The device can get warm on the back, basically behind the screen part. But I have never felt warmth just holding it anywhere near the grips or like a normal person. It's only a little bit warm if you touch the back, which you have no reason to ever do. That is a massive positive to me. That even when it does heat up, in the rare scenarios that it does, it is never to a degree that is a problem, and it is never a point where you feel it. Lastly, on the battery front, there is a wide range of battery here. But like the fan noise and thermals, they nailed the battery here. I played through Destiny 2, and I saw a battery life of just under 3 hours. This would be one of the worst case scenarios for battery. I'm at 100% brightness. I'm playing Destiny 2. I'm at the highest TDP mode. Your average battery life most likely is going to be around 4 hours or so, at 15 watts. And that's pretty much what you can expect on the highest end. Now for indies and low emulation at 6 watts, I clocked my time at a little over 7 hours of battery life. So yeah, battery life is pretty good. Once again, I tailored this review towards users that may not be familiar with PC handhelds, but this combination of no fan noise, great thermals, and battery life is just not something that we usually see in this market. It just doesn't exist with these PC handhelds, and it is something that Asus has nailed with the Ally X, and now the Xbox Ally. Let's go ahead and wrap things up for today. The Xbox Ally can be easy to recommend and hard to recommend, depending on you as a person. Up till now, there is not a single other device that has the ease of use, the introductory, whatever you want to call it, onboarding, all of that the Xbox Ally has. All of that has to do with the software that is on it right now. That currently is not on any other device out of the box. The out-of-the-box experience of this device makes the entire thing. That is why when I'm talking about how my review is tailored towards console users, the expectation is that you can go from having a console to using a device like this and not skip a beat. And right now, this is the only handheld on the market where you can do that. Now, that being said, for everybody else that is familiar with PC handhelds, knows what a Steam Deck is, knows what an Ally X is, all of that, there are better options than this, obviously. You can go into the used market, you can pick up pretty much whatever you want. A Legion Go S, an ROG Ally X, whatever you want. They will be better than this device. The main top selling point of this is still that Xbox full screen experience and the expectations there. You can, of course, put that software on other devices, but you need to know how to do that. Console users are not going to do that. So from that perspective, I can easily recommend this to anybody that is a console user that wants to jump into the PC handheld world for the first time, but I don't think I would recommend this to anybody that has an ROG Ally X, has a Lenovo Legion Go, has all of these handhelds already, because there just isn't anything here that would excite you, and you would be going backwards in performance because of that. And so again, just to reiterate this point for the last time, this is aimed at one group and one group only. New users to PC handheld world. That's why you should buy this device right now. And to kind of wrap everything up, I can't point to anything that they got wrong on this. I really can't. They nailed every part of this. Outside of performance, which we could talk about all day long, that it should be a little bit more powerful than this. But again, if we go back to the Steam Deck, that is the best-selling device, and people are still making videos about in 2025 about you should buy a Steam Deck. If you get a Windows device with the same performance and better compatibility, would that not mean that this is also a good purchase? I think so. So from my perspective, this is an easy recommend to anybody that wants to jump in for the first time to the PC handheld world. For everybody else, maybe you want to look towards the Xbox Ally X, which we'll talk about in a few days, probably. So that's going to be it for this one. Don't forget to like and sub to help the channel grow. Come join me on the Discord to talk all about PC handhelds. Support me through YouTube membership if you like my stuff. And hope you all have a good one.